The next few weeks leading up to Easter, we're going to be doing a mini-series, really, that are based on the set readings. There's this amazing thing that all the Anglican churches, and not just Anglican churches, across the country have set readings on a 3-year cycle, so that in lots of places today across the world, the readings that we've got, other people will be reading as well. And as Rich has already said, Lent is a time of preparing, of getting ready to celebrate Easter Sunday. And Advent is the lead up to Christmas, but for all of us, I think Advent is usually a hectic time, isn't it? There's all sorts going on. There's family to see, there's preparations to make, there's Christmas parties, there's school nativity plays, there's all sorts of things. So Advent can be a really, really busy time leading up to Christmas, but Lent is a time of preparing that hopefully is a bit slower with a bit more space in it. And so I hope that this Lent we can all take a bit of time to take stock of our spiritual lives, our walk with Jesus, our faith journey, and hopefully go deeper with him. So we're going to be looking at I'm doing 6 weeks and Rich is doing Mothering Sunday in the middle. So we're going to look at If, which is today, faith, life, resurrection, obedience, and new. They're the 6 short little titles. They have to be short so that I can remember them, otherwise I forget. And a few people have said to me, what am I giving up for Lent? What am I stopping for Lent? And I've decided, and I think it's come out of my looking at these passages, just to try and make life a bit simpler during Lent. Just try and clear, whether that's eating or doing less or something, just trying to make life a bit simpler so that I can spend time with him. Some of those words, some of the themes we're looking at are really kind of the basics of our faith, basics of Christianity. Faith and life and resurrection. Easter Sunday is all about resurrection and life, which is really, that's at the core of our faith. But it does us good to revisit them sometimes and to think about them, not take some of those things for granted. So I hope that your journey with me through these next few weeks, and in the week to take home the notice sheet with you and to think through the readings and ponder during the week some of the things that we've been saying, and let God speak to you through those words, and ask God what you want him to communicate to you through the readings. But the first reading this morning is the reading from Romans. Which one were you doing, Chris? Are you doing Romans or Matthew? Brilliant. I'll do the Romans one. That's great then. Okay, now I'm sat here. I've got that sorted. So Romans 5, if you have a look at it, and it's a typical Paul reading where there's all sorts of words and long sentences. So I'll try and read it slowly so that it makes sense. Therefore, just as sin entered the world through one man, and death through sin, and in this way death came to all people because all sinned. To be sure, sin was in the world before the law was given, but sin is not charged against anyone's account where there is no law. Nevertheless, death reigned from the time of Adam to the time of Moses, even over those who did not sin by breaking a command as Adam did, who is a pattern of the one to come. But the gift is not like the trespass, for if the many died by the trespass of the one man, how much more did God's grace and the gift of that came by the grace of the one man, Jesus Christ, overflow to the many? Nor can the gift of God be compared with the result of the one man's sin. The judgment followed one sin and brought condemnation, but the gift followed many trespasses and brought justification. For if by the trespass of the one man death reigned through that one man, how much more will those who receive God's abundant provision of grace and of the gift of righteousness reign in life through the one man, Jesus Christ? Consequently, Just as one trespass resulted in condemnation for all people, so also one righteous act resulted in justification and life for all people. For just as through the disobedience of the one man the many were made sinners, so also through the obedience of the one man the many will be made righteous. That's quite a lot to think about, so do keep thinking during the week. And Chris is going to come and read the Matthew reading. Thanks, Chris.
Jesus tested in the wilderness. Then Jesus was led by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. After fasting for 40 days and 40 nights, he was hungry. And the tempter came to him and said, "If you are the Son of God, tell these stones to become bread." And Jesus answered, "It is written, man shall not live on bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth of God." Then the devil took him to the holy city and set him on the highest point of the temple. "If you are the Son of God," he said, "throw yourself down, for it's written, he will command his angels concerning you, and they will lift you up in their hands, so that you will not strike your foot against a stone." And Jesus answered him, "It's also written, do not put the Lord your God to the test." Again, the devil took him to a very high mountain and showed him all the kingdoms of the world and their splendor. "All this I will give you," he said, "if you will bow down and worship me." And Jesus said to him, "Away from me, Satan, for it is written, worship the Lord your God and serve him only." Then the devil left him, and angels came and attended him.
If the many died by the trespass of one man, how much more? Verse 15 in the Romans reading. Or verse 17, if by the trespass of the one man, death reigned through one man. In the Matthew reading, it says, "If you are the Son of God, command these stones." If you are the Son of God, throw yourself down. If you bow down and worship me, I will give you all this. Those are some big ifs. And we're going to look briefly at the passages, and then I'm going to pose a lot of if questions, maybe challenges, maybe options. And I'm not necessarily going to answer them all. In fact, I won't answer them all today. But I want us to think, I want us to puzzle over some of the things that maybe some of us take for granted. Maybe some of us have lived with these things for so long, they just become part of the background noise almost of our lives. And I want us to think about them and mull over them in a new way this week. The Romans passage sets out two scenarios, two situations, two sides of a coin, if you like. Last week, Jackie used a penny coin for us to think about the prayers, and we looked at both sides of the coin. And today, Paul is almost describing two sides of a coin. Let's see if I can make this work. Next one. Brilliant. On one side of the coin, there is some quite big, heavy, almost depressing words. Sin, disobedience, death, judgment, and condemnation. He's saying basically that one man, Adam, disobeyed God and sinned, and that led to death for him and for everyone else. And part of that was judgment and condemnation. Sin came into the world through one man, and death came through that sin and spread to everybody. That's one side of the coin. The other side of the coin is completely different. Righteousness, obedience, life, grace, justification. How amazing, what a difference that makes you feel when you hear those words to the first words. Many died through one man's trespass, but one man, Jesus, obeyed God, and this led to abundant grace, a free gift of righteousness, justification and life for everyone. The sin of Adam led to death and judgment, but the many trespasses were followed by Jesus and God's gift of justification. Death reigned through one man, but life can reign through another man. There's a lot of deep theology and complex ideas and thoughts in there that people go to college to study for years to unpack, and I'm not going to do that now in a 20-minute talk. But the gist of it is, on one hand, there was Adam, who sinned, who went against God, who did things wrong, who disobeyed, and that ultimately led to death. And after him came Jesus, full of love and grace and mercy, which means that all of us, every one of us here, can have life, and life in all its abundance. You'll remember a while ago I confessed about my speeding ticket that I got issued. Some of you will remember that story very clearly. I know because some of you mention it to me every now and again. But I had disobeyed the rules of driving. I had gone too fast. I guess, even without the rules there, I was driving maybe a bit dangerously. I don't think so, but that's what the rule of the road was saying. I disobeyed the rules, and that led to a judgment of my actions and being condemned to pay a fine, which I paid, and I got points on my licence. But what if the judge had made the decision, yes, Catherine, you had done wrong, but I'm going to pay the fine for you, and I'm going to take the points on the licence, and you just go free. That was the essence of what I talked about a while ago, and that is the essence of the different sides of the coin here. I wonder which side of the coin you're choosing today. There are two distinct sides: disobedience that led to sin and death, or obedience of Jesus that led to life. What if death is the consequence of Adam's sin through free choice and not God's ideal for his world and for us? What if God cared enough and wanted to change something, wanted to change that, wanted to remedy that? What if we can choose which side of the coin we are a part of, rather than it just being a choice, a chance tossing, flicking of the coin? What if we can choose which side of the coin we live by? Then a quick look at the Matthew passage. Matthew passage tells us that about Jesus being led into the wilderness and being tempted by the devil. And again, there's lots that we could look at. And if you want to have a little bit more of a look at that, come to Dwell tonight, because that passage is going to be the basis of what we're thinking about in Dwell this evening. But look at the questions the devil asks. He asks two questions. If you are the Son of God, and he asked Jesus that twice. And then he says, if you will bow down and worship me. If you are the Son of God. What if Jesus really, really, really was the Son of God? And what if the Son of God came to earth and lived and breathed and was tempted and healed people and taught people and loved and died on the cross and rose again to life? What if Jesus is the Son of God? What if Jesus was God's way of changing the consequences of disobedience and sin, that one side of the coin, and giving us the choice, giving us an option of the other side of the coin? What if you choose to accept the gift and live in that side of the coin? But what if Jesus was not the Son of God? What if he didn't live and he didn't die and he didn't rise to life? Well, if there was no Jesus, there would be no church. The existence of the church only came about, is only a result of this man Jesus living on earth. Whatever you believe, if you chose to believe that Jesus wasn't the Son of God, what if he wasn't? Well, without him, the church wouldn't exist. And we know that over the centuries, the church has done many great and some not so good things. But the church has existed and been active, and the man called Jesus was the start of the church. So if there was a man named Jesus, then was he the Son of God? Well, maybe there are three possibilities. Maybe he, this man named Jesus, and others around him at the time made false claims about who he was. Maybe there was misrepresentation. That would have made Jesus and the other people around liars. Or what if he and other people were just deluded? They got it all completely wrong. They had just gone off the rails. They were deluded. Then maybe he was a lunatic. But if his and other claims that he is Lord were true, and then we have a choice about whether to believe them or not. A liar, a lunatic, or the Lord? That's the question. What if, just what if, we choose to believe that Jesus was not the Son of God and we do nothing? Then we live on that first side of the coin and we still have death. But what if we choose to believe that Jesus was the Son of God and we do something? Then we have life. I warned you that I was asking lots of questions today, and there's some more to come. But I hope it's just making us think and thinking about what we believe and maybe why we even believe it. I hope that it's challenging us. It challenged me as I was thinking this week, and I hope it is challenging us. Which side of the coin have we chosen to believe? Have we chosen to believe that Jesus is the Son of God a long time ago? Maybe for me it was probably, 35 years ago, I choose to believe that Jesus was the Son of God. Maybe for some of you it's been in the last few months. Maybe some of you are still sitting there thinking, can that really be true? Is Jesus really the Son of God? What if he was? What if he is? And we're not choosing to believe that. Just a few more what ifs. What if God is good and is love? What if the grace of God means that we can have a free gift that means we are made clean and righteous before God? The judge that made the judgment about my speeding fine, I had to pay the consequences. But what if Jesus, as judge and ruler and creator of the world, means that through Jesus we can have a gift that means we're not guilty, we are washed clean? What if God's grace is big enough to save the whole world? What if he can make a difference to our lives here and now, today, for each and every one of us? What if Jesus really meant what he said? What if he really was who he said he was and who other people said he was? What if Jesus really is the Son of God? What if we choose to really believe that in our hearts and in our heads and in our lives? We make that choice to really believe that. And if you've chosen that before, what about if you just remind yourself of that incredible truth that maybe Jesus is the Son of God and his grace is big enough for all of us today and always. Big enough for us, big enough for Twerton, for Bath, for Britain, for the world. What if we really, really believe that and take hold of that? Maybe for Lent, that's all you need to do for Lent, is just believe that in a new and a deeper and a fresh way. Dare to choose that side of the coin for Lent and see what happens. And if you get to Easter and think, actually, that's not for me, that's a load of tosh, I'd be really surprised and I'll have a chat with you, come and tell me. But I think that we would, in 7-8 weeks' time, see some really exciting things happening within us and in our community. What if Jesus really is the Son of God? It's a choice. We choose which side of the coin we live by. What if we really choose the second side for Lent, for the next 40 days and a few more? A long time before Jesus walked on the earth, a long time before he was tempted by the devil in these readings, a long time before that, there was a man called Daniel. There's a book in the Old Testament, quite before Psalms, in the first half of the Bible, who was written by Daniel. And he was put in a really difficult position. The king of his time had made a golden image and commanded everyone in the nation to worship it. But Daniel and his 3 friends, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, refused. They refused to worship the gold image. And the officials, the government of the time, found out and told the king about their disobedience to him. But they still refused, even though they were threatened by the king to be placed in a blazing furnace. They still refused to worship the golden image because they chose to worship God. And this is what Daniel said on behalf of his friends. If our God, whom we serve, is able to deliver us from the furnace and out of your hand, let him deliver us. But if not, we will still not serve you, but worship our God. That was a big if question. Daniel and his 3 friends were threatened with being put in a blazing furnace because they chose God and not choose to worship the idol. They said, if our God, whom we serve, is able to deliver us from the furnace and out of your hand, let him deliver us. But if not, we're still not going to serve you. We're still going to worship our God. If you want to find out what happens, read chapter 3 of Daniel. It's a brilliant, brilliant story. And the God who works in that chapter is the same God that can work for us today if we choose. God is for you, is for us, every moment that the universe exists. The living God lives for you. So my challenge to all of us is, can we live the Daniel challenge this Lent? Can we live this Lent? What if God loves us? What if Jesus is the Son of God? What if his love is big enough for us and the world? What if we choose to live on the second side of the coin and not the first side of the coin? You only have to start off doing it for Lent. If you're not sure about it, that's my challenge. Do it for Lent and see what happens. But I think once you do it for those few weeks, you won't want to stop doing it. And maybe for those of us who have believed that for a long time, we need to remember afresh what that really means. Jesus is the Son of God for us. So I challenge us all this Lent to do the Daniel challenge. What if God is who he says he is, then the next 7 weeks could be amazing. They won't be easy. If you read what happened to Daniel, it wasn't easy what happened next. But it turned out for the best. And what if not? Well, there's nothing to lose in a sense, is there? But there is everything to gain.